Hello and welcome to the Kubernetes Case Files Commentary. I'm your host, Glen Simon, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Katarina Brookfield and Mike Foley, both tech marketing architects for VMware. The Kubernetes Case Files is kind of a whimsical way to talk about app modernization in the context of a fictional detective story. The story plays out over a series of episodes, and I think we're on episode number 6. In our latest episode, our detective talks to a person named vSphere, a friend who reveals some interesting things about what might help legacy bank solve their app modernization problems. So for our conversation today, I'd like to talk a little about the challenges that IT pros face when they take on building a Kubernetes platform. So I've heard stories about IT pros, being anxious or having a certain amount of anxiety about diving into the Kubernetes area. What are they nervous about?
Oh boy.
I'd say it's the unknown. Coming from the traditional IT personnel, looking into the world of Kubernetes is really vast. There's so much information out there, and it's just completely different concepts to what they are used to. So it can be quite overwhelming. So it's really difficult for the traditional IT people to take that step towards a completely new world and new concept.
Well, I guess, speaking for myself, I'm not an IT pro, but, it deals with software development. And, I've never developed software. I wrote, maybe some programs back in the basic days, but, it seems like a totally different world.
Yeah, it's a totally different world from the management standpoint as well. I came into the Kubernetes side of the fence a couple of years ago, and I feel like I'm drinking from the fire hose because things are moving so fast. Things are being developed so quickly. And, you get a phone call saying, so have you heard about the new foobar thing? And you're like, what? And you go online, you find out it's a project that just got released that day. Probably the biggest challenge that I encountered when I started delving into this was the whole concept of desired state computing, right? Whereas as a vSphere admin, I would write a PowerShell script that said, okay, go out and set the setting on each of these VMs to be this, right? I would run it, and those settings would immediately change to be whatever I set them to. In the Kubernetes world, I want those settings to be set to this. And Kubernetes will keep trying until it's completed its task. So if a VM is down or unable to be modified at the moment, it will wait until whatever clears that log jam. And then we'll say, okay, now I can update that thing. So what you may see during day-to-day operations are error messages, and all of a sudden traditional IT people are going, oh my God, it's all red. No, that's just Kubernetes keeping tabs on what's going on and retrying that task as many times as you allow it to, right? So that was probably the biggest change from a day-to-day or day-two management standpoint, was sitting back and relaxing and going, okay, especially like during the install and configure of vSphere with Tanzu. That's where you're going to experience it first as a vSphere admin, and being able to sit back and go, I don't need to worry about these error messages in the task manager of vCenter, because it's configuring. Okay, I'm done. And you're like, okay, it's a different mindset, right? And from traditional IT, that could be a little anxiety right there.
Well, I wonder if that anxiety has encouraged or maybe gave organizations no other choice but maybe to have developers build these platforms. Obviously, maybe they're using public cloud for building new apps in the cloud, but to modernize their on-prem apps, as we talked about with Miles in earlier episodes, is it easier to move a big legacy app into the cloud? Or, well, no, probably you got to modernize it on-prem. But as we talked about last time, IT knows a lot more about infrastructure, about managing organizational risks than the developers, right? So
Right.
yeah, it's this kind of situation where what are they, who are they going to jump in and wrestle with the Kubernetes bear, I guess, to use a poor metaphor. Well, is there anything that VMware can do to help with the IT folks deal with this?
Good, Kat.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is where vSphere Tanzu comes into play, because it brings us the ability to take the traditional IT personnel, the vSphere admins who have years of experience, and build a platform that will support those developers. Because traditionally, developers want to develop applications. They don't really want to, take care of the actual platform and its lifecycle and maintenance and everything that comes with it. Whereas the vSphere admins now get a chance to do that. And with vSphere Tanzu, the greatest thing about the solution is that they don't necessarily need to know all of the constructs of Kubernetes, because they are presented with this really nice user-friendly interface that fronts a lot of these settings for them. So within a nice graphical, clicky way, they can configure things that would be really difficult doing in traditional Kubernetes, but using vSphere, it seems very familiar. So they would be more willing to dive into this world and take it on.
As a vSphere admin, do I need to? I've heard of these things called YAML files and kubectl commands. Do I need to be able to do that as an IT admin or vSphere admin?
I think it helps you career-wise to understand how your users are using your infrastructure, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a major shift for you. And myself and Miles previously and going forward, Katarina, have created content that introduces you to some of this. And what you may find from an IT standpoint is, once you get your head wrapped around that whole desired state model and the everything is code sort of model, you may find yourself going, you know what, maybe we should do this in Kubernetes rather than in the traditional way. Because with Kubernetes, you mentioned kubectl, that is the CLI for Kubernetes, right? And you mentioned YAML files. Well, those are the descriptors of what you want to create. So I can create a YAML file that says, I need one container running Nginx, another one running some other application. I need, a database with a large capacity. You're just describing essentially what you describe in the drive-through at McDonald's. You don't really care how it gets done in the background, so long as you get your final thing. So rather than from a vSphere admin standpoint, rather than having to go in and manually configure all the interconnects, Kubernetes is doing that for you. So what you can end up with is a YAML file that describes how to spin up a new workload. Maybe it's an IT workload rather than a developer's workload. And you can check that into code, into your source code control, like GitHub or what have you. And now you can do repeated actions very, very quickly without having to dive into all the nitty gritty of, okay, I need to configure it with this much memory and this many NICs, and they need to be on this network and that network. And before you know it, you've got a PowerShell script that's about this long of things that have to be done to make it all work right. Whereas you could condense that down into a YAML file that's about this big.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Now, but as a vSphere admin, I would, at least initially, I don't maybe I don't have to do this.
Oh, no.
Get involved, but maybe over time, like you were saying, maybe from a career standpoint, or just, advancing my career,
Curiosity.
yeah, over time, then maybe I get more into that. But at least, starting out, I can just use the vSphere vSphere that
Absolutely.
I already know. Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, that's I think that's good for today. So thank you, Katarina and Mike. That wraps up this episode of the Kubernetes Case Files commentary. Thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you next time.